So here we are in beautiful Sydney, Australia on a winter's day. It's a lovely, lovely day and I'm enjoying being outside. But we wanted to talk a little bit about our blog conversation that keeps continuing about anxiety. And this topic is on the biological, psychological and spiritual roots of anxiety. And I thought we might just have a short conversation about how that comes into our relationship.
There is a little anxiety in our relationship over the years, hasn't there?
There has been, and I know for me, when you threaten disconnection, or I see a look, or I see anger, or I see harshness or coldness, I shut down and I'm out of there. And that's how my anxiety expresses itself. And I'm kind of out of there emotionally, and sometimes I might even be out of there physically. I try and avoid you or distance myself from you, which really touches on your anxiety, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it's like a cat chasing a dog chasing its tail. As soon as I sense that, it goes back into early messages for me that I've got to be a good boy to keep connection. Or those are the messages I perceive. And so I immediately start doing things to be a good boy. And
then when I still don't respond to that...
Oh my word, there's some very strong conditions attached to those little acts of service. And if you don't respond in the way I perceive as being correct, then I can shut down rapidly.
So we do this loop, don't we? And it's been quite destructive over the years.
Well, when I shut down, the way I keep the energy in that distance, and to stop myself from feeling the need to connect, my resentment builds, and I can hold a grudge very well.
And I'm over here feeling really sad and sorrowful and kind of beating myself up for how I've just acted. So here we are in that loop again. I know mine comes from an early message that says, no one's going to be there for me, you're not going to be there for me, I'm on my own. So I tend to push you away and reject you before you have a chance to reject me. And I've only really just become aware of that in maybe over the last 10 years.
What, the fact that you push first before?
Yeah. It's like flicking a switch. It's automatic, and I just shut down.
So in some sense, you're almost set up to validate the message.
Yeah, but so are you. You're saying with your good boy message. How does that kind of work?
Well, I'm going to be a good boy in order to restore the relationship, because if the relationship is disconnected, the message I get is I'm not good enough. There's something wrong with me, and so my normal effort is to redouble my efforts to be good. I think about that and I go back into Genesis, and right there in the beginning of time, when Adam and Eve were shown out of the garden, and it was as if shame just began to permeate their life, and their immediate response to that was to cover up. And in a sense, that's what I do. I cover up that sense of I'm not good enough by either doing acts of service, and if they're not received, I can be very resentful and brooding, which is a strong defence against you ever seeing what's going on in my life. And I love that verse in Genesis 3:10, when God comes into the garden, and instead of saying, well, Adam, why did you do that? He just says, Adam, where are you? And this is the God of the universe. He knew where Adam was. But Adam's response, I believe, set the tone for humankind. And it's what I do, and I sense it's what you do. Whenever we feel the threat of being exposed, that part of us that we're uncomfortable with, that we want to keep hidden, we get afraid. We don't want that exposure. And our response is to hide. I hide behind resentment and anger. And I hear what I'm hearing you say is you hide behind a very strong withdrawal emotionally. You shut down emotionally. Is that because the emotions are too difficult to bear, and so therefore you want to somehow numb them?
Yeah, because it just occurred to me then as you were talking about that beneath that message is no one will come for me is that I'm the cause of that. There's something fundamentally wrong with me, which goes back to shame, which is what Adam experienced.
Oh, I think we all are connected in that way, in that we know what the experience
And
of
thus
shame
that's the spiritual roots of it, those strongholds in both our lives that we've become aware of. And I love the fact that God responds to anxiety, not with judgment, but with compassion, a gentle drawing, a turning towards. And I guess that's what we've been trying to do with each other. Instead of turning away, which is my natural bent, is to turn towards and say, where are you? Can we explore this?
I think that's a wonderful question that God asked of Adam, and it's something that we can ask of ourselves when we get into that situation. Not always possible.
I know, but one of us needs to get off that destructive loop and say, where are you?
I should correct that. I guess it's always possible, but when we're in the heat of the moment, it feels as if it's unattainable to be able to step back and say, well, where are you, Polly? What's happened? Where have you gone? But what a wonderful question to ask. Instead of shutting down and moving away,
Moving towards. Yeah.
and inquiring.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's all right.